Have you ever wondered what it would be like to inherit the traits of an animal, seen a bird flying in the air or a gazelle going really fast and thought, I wonder if I could do that? Well, science is a bitch, but out of all the traits I can think of when it comes to what animals can pull off, my choice would be something a little bit different. This would be the animals that are truly immortal. So, these are the animals that can never die. The immortal animals of our world that just have the knack to know never to quit. When do you kick the bucket, they say? And that is never. Today we're going to look into these animals then and figure out how we can harvest these immortal powers for our own purposes. Yeah, that's right. We start today with probably the least pretty animal on this entire list. Sorry, but it's the flatworm. This little guy seems pretty basic on the surface, a slippery worm with two googly eyes on the front. Seems kinda like something that someone's kid drew out on the back of a textbook, but there is more here than meets the eye, and when it comes to the flatworm, that is a lot. What's pretty special about this is that all you need is a flatworm and a big knife. Now, I'm not condoning this in the slightest, and my god, don't be such a cruel bastard, but if you were to cut up a flatworm, just theoretically, then this little flatworm might not succumb the excruciating death that you might expect it does. Whilst I would never do this, hypothetically, if some cruel bastard was to come and cut this worm in two, well, it wouldn't die. Not quite. That's because this animal has a rather unique ability, and much like a comic superpower, when it's cut up into different pieces, those parts can form into a new flatworm. What? I'm fairly sure I've seen that in Marvel Comics somewhere, but this is for realsies. According to a study at the University of Nottingham, this apparently limitless regeneration also applies to aging and damaged tissue, allowing the worms to cheat death indefinitely. What the fuck, guy? That is mind-boggling to think about, but after all that cool science and stuff and the study of the flatworm, what if we could do that as humans? You lose a finger in a tragic grizzly bear accident. I don't know how that would happen, but say you had a finger severed from your body. Is there a way that we could regenerate that into an entirely new human? Hey, I mean, if it grows back into something bigger than it was before, then I could certainly do with that for other parts of myself. The possibilities are endless. Oi, someone get us that knife over there. The Immortal Jellyfish, or more commonly known as Toritoposis dorni. This. Which is mostly found in the Mediterranean Sea, but can actually be found all around the world. Although the natural course of nature is that all organisms grow, develop and die. Circle of life, baby, Lion King taught me that. But as a wee child, we all kind of know that this is the natural course of things. But if you had an animal that could defy the logic of nature, stay young forever, well, the Immortal Jellyfish has got it, and its name is well deserved. Now, if only some old dude could just harvest its DNA and use it for himself, then, wow, those rich people are never getting old. So, how does this all work? Well, you have an egg, which hatches into a larvae, which then grows into a polyp, which then releases the adult jellyfish. All pretty normal stuff, as far as underwater sea life is concerned, because for our purposes that's very weird, but there we are. So what makes the Immortal Jellyfish so different to others of its kind, and can basically Thanos timestone its way back to infancy? Moreover, after the jellyfish reaches its adult stage, it can revert back to being a polyp, and then regenerates back into being an adult jellyfish. Again, something which can, for some reason, be done indefinitely. So what does this mean for our immortal jellyfish friend? Well, by harvesting this method over and over again, it simply can't die of old age, provided it keeps doing this. So, by the name, it is technically immortal. If we're talking about the passage of time at least. Because, you know what, there are still predators and disease in the wild, which is pretty much the number one killer of all of these immortal jellyfish. So, whilst they can regenerate indefinitely like some Doctor Who ripoff, something will eventually get them, whatever that may be. You might be able to reverse the biological clock, but there ain't nothing stopping you from getting eaten by a big ass fish. Whilst in a lab, they have found that the regenerations can happen in very short intervals, and studies have found that this can occur upwards of 10 times in intervals as short as a single month. So, effectively, this can be indefinitely as far as we know. Since scientists are even looking into the possibility of turning one cell into another, effectively replicating the effect of the immortal jellyfish, which, if successful, would be groundbreaking. But for us as a species, to avoid the worst of situations and issues as we get older, such as preventing the onset of things like Parkinson's, and at the very least if I can keep this mop of hair on my head without it falling out by the age of 50, then science has come a very far way indeed. Whilst these are cool, I can't end without talking about the animal which you would probably class as something even better than anything that could regenerate itself, or being able to turn back the biological clock. I mean a full-blown, indestructible beast, also known as... This is what we're talking about, folks, an animal so small that you can't see it with the naked eye. This microscopic creature that can survive 300-degree temperatures, up to 30 years without food or water, and even several days in space, this is the water bear. But how is this possible? And how do we even know that this can happen? Well, aside from us being able to have really good telescopes, we've been able to monitor their activity when subject to, quite frankly, ridiculous environments, and when those conditions get really bad, they simply undergo a process of circling themselves up and entering a form of stasis, which allows them to survive pretty much anything you can throw at them. Immense temperatures, radiation, pressure, you name it. The forever delightful Oxford University even undertook a study that found they would be more than likely to survive an outer space catastrophe, such as a supernova, that would more than likely wipe out the entirety of humanity, but for some reason, these guys might just be able to survive it. Which again is incredibly impressive. So when you're perishing in a great ball of fire, just remember that these little guys are still floating around, minding their own business. Great balls of fire, that's an impressive knack that they've got there. So this, as far as I'm concerned, is the true immortal animal. And I don't think anything on a list can top that, with quite frankly picking the animal which is almost indestructible. It certainly tops the bill. Now, if only we could enter a stasis mode and survive the worst possible events ourselves. And you're probably asking if this is possible and how do we even replicate this for ourselves? Such as when your mother asked you to take out the trash, you'd rather shit in your hands and clap, so you decide to roll up in a ball of stasis to avoid any responsibility. My god, that would be amazing. But who knows, maybe science one day will figure out how to get out of all the household chores simply with biology. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, I'm going into stasis.